How do I know if I told you anything, you wouldn't just shoot? God damn it.
Now the sad truth is, money is the root of all evil. It has a tendency to tear families apart rather than bring them together, and in the case of the Saint family, it really has torn them apart. In episode 9, all Franklin wanted was his 73 million, and if it hasn't been made clear already, nothing would stop him or get in his way from getting his money back. He made it clear to Sissy, "Let me be very clear, I'll never give up, never. I will get back my motherfucking money." He said he didn't care about Alton, and he was even willing to never see his mother again if it meant getting his money back. And that's the issue for Franklin Saint. That's all he cares about, him getting his money back more than anything else. And unfortunately that stopped him from grieving the death of Jerome. It also stops him seeing the perspectives of Sissy and Leon in episode 9, or anybody who questions his decision making. Earlier in the season, he went to Veronique's mother. He killed Teddy's father and threatened Teddy's ex-wife and kid. And if Franklin was able to get his hands on them, God knows what he would have done, because I'm sure he would have done whatever was necessary to get his hands on his money. In season 6, Franklin Saint hasn't just been able to see past the money, and I mentioned after episode 8, Teddy's pain tolerance better be high, because he was about to be brutally tortured. So in a role reversal, when Teddy had Franklin tied up in the very first season, it was Franklin Saint's turn in episode 9. But the question was, would he succeed in getting his money back? He certainly thought so, but I don't think he'd ever imagined it would be Sissy that would get in his way. Now, episode 9 picks up with Louie packing up to leave town when she receives a phone call from Franklin. We hear Franklin telling her that she needs to get out of town because DEA has been watching her and they know that she's been working with Teddy. And while they're on the phone, we see them pulling up and surrounding her house. She drops the phone and runs, calling Buckley for help. She tells him that she's got $1 million in cash at one of her houses, but he only agrees to take her if she agrees to give him half. And at this moment in time, Louie had no choice but to accept. But when Buckley pulls over to take a hit, Louie grabs his gun and finds Buckley behind a tree getting high, and this is where she thinks about Jerome. She asked Buckley at the funeral whether Jerome paged him when everything was going down with Kane, and he said no. But when she checks his pager, she already knew the reason why Buckley didn't respond. It's because he was high. So she takes his keys and drives off. But whether that concludes her story, I'm sure we'll probably learn more in episode 10. Now from Louie to Gustavo, he was another person who was leaving town. While Franklin tied up Teddy to a chair in his warehouse, Teddy told Franklin to be sensible, but Franklin is way too far gone. With Ruben, they continue to ignore him, but in Franklin's mind, he owes two key players, Teddy who was former CIA and Ruben from the KGB. Now once Sissy and Leon came around to keep an eye on Ruben and Teddy, Franklin takes Gustavo where he says goodbye to Franklin, and they have a good old joke about him entering the ring again, a callback to when they first met in season 1. But before Gustavo left, he made one last request. Make sure Franklin kills Teddy so he doesn't come after Gustavo or his family, a request that wasn't completed by Franklin Saint, but Sissy. So over to Sissy, who finally gets to talk to Teddy one-on-one, which is after she confronted Ruben for betraying her trust and manipulating her and Franklin to take down Teddy. He says the KGB has recordings of Ruben meeting with Franklin, something the KGB will release to the press if he doesn't return. But even if she is tempted, she knows Franklin Saint would never bite. Now when it comes back to Teddy, he makes a different play compared to Ruben. He tells Sissy that Alton isn't dead. He claims that he took Alton and stuffed him in a prison cell in Puerto Rico. And at this moment in time, as a viewer, we really do have to be mindful that anybody would say anything to survive or escape in this situation. But for Sissy, it is understandable that this put a seed of doubt into her mind. Now when Franklin returns to the warehouse, he plays Russian roulette with Teddy, and he pulls the trigger twice. But Teddy thinks they're blanks, but when Franklin shoots the gun in the air revealing that there was one in the chamber, Teddy says Franklin has lost his mind.
Oh, you've lost your mind.
Yup.
Now, where Franklin was happy to continue playing Russian roulette, Sissy walks in and tells Franklin to let the KGB deal with Teddy, and the best thing they could do was leave the country and run. But as I mentioned before, Franklin is too far gone. But where Franklin and Veronique have been sleeping, Veronique tells Franklin they're out of cash and the banks are about to pounce on their assets. She then pulls out a bottle of corn oil. Now this is where we see Veronique and Teddy coming face to face for the very first time, and she gives them a story of how her mother never cooked, but how her grandmother was one day cooking Christmas dinner and the kitchen caught fire, and she asked him, have you ever seen what hot oil does to human skin? Regardless of if he did or didn't, he was about to find out. Franklin burns Teddy by pouring boiling hot oil on his chest. While Teddy screams in pain, he calls Franklin an animal, but Franklin says he made him that way, and he questioned why did he take his money. Now at first, Teddy says he stole the money so he could help the US fight its enemies, but Franklin knows better. They spent billions on their defense, and 73 million really is a drop in the ocean compared to what they spend protecting themselves from threats. So this is where we hear Teddy confessing that he stole the money because it never belonged to Franklin in the first place. He said that money was his. The whole cocaine operation was his foundation, and he made Franklin the kingpin that he became. But before they get into a further war of words, or before Franklin could pour more hot oil onto his skin, he makes Franklin an offer. Now the offer was to split 73 million, and surprisingly Franklin actually agrees to the deal. I guess from his perspective, half was better than nothing, but Franklin did make sure he kept one ace up his sleeve. He was keeping Ruben back, and he wasn't giving him up until he had the confirmation of the wire transfer. But this is where things went horribly left for Franklin Sane, and where Sissy got her revenge for Alton.
You think this is how it ends? You think Teddy's just gonna vanish and y'all can go on living y'all's lives?
For 37 million, I'm willing to take that chance.
Now Sissy wasn't happy that Franklin was happy to let Teddy live, and said that Franklin was too naive to think Teddy was just going to let Franklin walk away. Ironically, him and Veronique give the same response Louie did at the end of season 5. They'll take their chances. And I don't agree with Franklin, I definitely agree with Sissy. Franklin, Sissy, Leon and Franklin's baby would never be safe if Teddy remained alive. But this is the moment we knew Franklin would choose money above everything else, including his own mother.
I'm done. And you and I will never see each other again.
Cutting ties with Sissy for money just shows how far gone Franklin really is. If he's happy to choose money over his own mother Sissy, there is no coming back. And even the preview for episode 10 shows him putting hands on Veronique. Now, Sissy says she doesn't want Leon or a grandchild anywhere near that trade-off, and after Franklin gets his money, they were done. Something that Franklin says he can live with, but can he? How's he gonna feel that he's on the other side looking at his own mother in a prison jumpsuit after what she just did? Now Franklin, Teddy and Sissy meet up with Steve in a public place, where Teddy gets on the phone to make the transfer of Franklin's half. But while he's on hold, Sissy asks Teddy which prison is Alton in, and his response was arrogant, which showed no remorse. He said he put 2 bullets into Alton and dumped his body. Now what Teddy did was give hope to Sissy earlier on in the episode that something good might actually come out of all of this situation, being reunited with Alton, or at least having a chance of finding her husband. But sometimes it's the hope that kills you. So as she steps back and as Teddy is about to give the bank the password to carry out the transfer, Sissy pulls out her gun and kills Teddy in cold blood as Franklin and Steve watch on. Steve walks away and Franklin frantically tries to get the password from Teddy with his dying breath. But after everything that Franklin has done, would it have been fair for him to get his money back while Sissy goes to prison for killing Teddy? Definitely not. While Franklin runs, Sissy stays and is happy to put an end to this misery. But it's not the end. Not yet anyway. Franklin Sane definitely deserves consequences based on everything that's happened to everybody else. But there is something left that Franklin can fight and live for, Veronique and his baby. But again, the only thing that Franklin's been fighting for the whole of season 6 is his money. Something which is beyond his reach now, because there is nothing that tears a family apart more than money. So how's it going to end for Franklin Sane? I can only think of one way. So drop all your thoughts down below in the comment section on season 6, episode 8 of Snowfall. But as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.